Welcome into the Frog Factor podcast. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. TCU football is 3-0. I did a post-game show on Saturday afternoon about the SMU game if you want to check that out. But we're going to sort of recap and talk about the game more in depth after I watched a second time over the weekend. In this episode on Monday, TCU, number 24 in the nation. In the latest AP poll, they come in the top 25. First time the Frogs have been in the top 25 in the AP poll since before the 2023 season. They were 17th in the country going into that game against Colorado, and Coach Prime lost that ball game, fell out, and they haven't been back in the top 25 rankings since. I mean, that's not as long of a drought as some teams, obviously, but it has been a while since they've been there. Jacob Langford said he didn't think they would be, one of our listeners said he didn't think they would be ranked after that win against SMU. I thought it was sort of a toss-up, and I guess that's basically where it landed at 24th in the country. They'd sort of been hovering around. The SMU win did not end up being as impressive as I thought it might be before the season because they lost to Baylor, but I think SMU's a good team, and that's where we'll start today. I feel like that was a solid win on Saturday. I don't believe I was negative during the post-game show, but I had some concerns about the defense, about the way they played. I felt like offensively, they weren't necessarily bad running the football. I mean, you look at the numbers, which don't always tell the story, but ended up with about 4 yards per carry, ran for 140 yards. Trent Battle was your leading rusher with 7 carries for 60 yards. Trent continues to be effective in short spurts and sample sizes. Part of me wants to see him get more carries, but I don't know if that's intentional on the coaching staff part to be like, hey, we feel like this guy can be explosive and is someone who can be a factor for us in short spurts during the game. And we don't want to give him 15 to 20 carries because we feel like the production would drop off a little bit. But he's been a good downhill runner. Jeremy Payne, I think, had a serviceable ball game. He ended up with 53 yards on 12 carries, about 4.5 yards per carry. He also had that touchdown catch on a nicely designed play in the red zone. But my point being, SMU spent a lot of money and resources this offseason on their offensive and defensive lines. They wanted to get better and stay good in the trenches. And you look at that ball game, Kavorian Barnes wasn't available. He didn't play. Don't know what his status is moving forward. Should know more on Tuesday after Sonny Dykes' press conference. Also, we'll get injury reports this week because the Big 12 mandates that now. So I believe starting on Wednesday, we should get a daily injury report leading up to the Don't Forget Friday game, short week, Friday night, 8 o'clock on the road against Arizona State. Kavorian Barnes didn't play, and you didn't do a great job running the ball, but you did a serviceable job running the football. And I honestly felt like Kendall Briles got away from the run game a little bit too early in the third quarter. I thought they were doing some good things there, and if they stuck with it, it would have been more effective. But that's a good defensive front that SMU has. I thought it was the offensive line's worst game of the year, but their other two opponents in North Carolina and ACU were pretty hapless. I think overall they held their ground well against a good SMU front seven, especially considering you got young tackles out there. You're rotating your guards a little bit because of some potential, I guess, injury or fatigue situations. And you still didn't really miss a beat. Josh Hoover was under more duress than you would like, but he wasn't running for his life all day long. He was still able to stand in there and make throws and make plays effectively. So I was happy with how the offensive line performed. Defensively, your defensive line against a team that is known for running the football, Rhett Lashley and his squad, they want to hang their hat on being a physical football team. You held SMU to 94 yards rushing. Kevin Jennings only had 5 rushes for 13 yards, and he's a slippery guy. Like, he's elusive and effective at buying time. I was impressed with his ability to buy time outside the pocket and then make good throws on the run and on the move. But he also is a quarterback that can beat you with his legs and make plays there too. And they're going to face a similar matchup with Sam Leavitt this week against Arizona State. But TJ Harden, UCLA transfer that they really like, held him to 56 yards rushing. I mean, Marcus Deal, Ansel Dinboo, those guys did a really nice job up front containing the run game. I even thought your linebackers, I felt like Caleb Alarmzor played well. The Max Carroll penalty was a killer. It was a boneheaded play, but I thought Max did a nice job. And I feel like you need him out there making plays like that, not making penalties like that. I believe your defense needs some guys who toe the line a little bit. Now you got to rein that in. It's inexcusable. It kept the drive going, and honestly, it kind of changed the course of the game a little bit. Because if they force an SMU punt there, I think there's a world where TCU runs away with it. But they didn't. Drive kept going, and unfortunately gave up a touchdown. I would always rather, with defensive players, have guys that you need to rein in than dudes that you have to hype up. So bring that physicality, bring that swagger, just tone it down and keep your wits about you and don't make silly penalties like that. I thought the linebackers played well. The secondary, I wouldn't say it was a great day. Vernon Glover really impressed me, specifically at corner in the fourth quarter. He made some big plays. But I will say, after watching that game a second time, Kevin Jennings is a really good player. I'm not going to totally excuse the secondary for some of the breakdowns on Saturday. Yeah, I thought Bud had a couple plays where he could have made a play on the football and he just didn't, or maybe he took an unnecessary risk and tried to undercut a ball where it wasn't there. Jennings also had some big time throws, though. I mean, that touchdown to go up 24-21, it wasn't step for step coverage, but man, that was a rope right down the middle of the field. I think it was 34 yards for a score. And early in the ball game, his ability to escape pressure, escape sacks, keep his eyes down the field and make throws in tight windows was super impressive. Now you're going to face good quarterbacks all year long, but I don't know how many. I don't think it's a long list of guys who are going to be better college QBs than Kevin Jennings. He's a good player, and he made some plays on Saturday that sort of left you scratching your head and frustrated. This defense has to find a way to get off the field on third down. It was an issue last year. It was an issue on Saturday. 3rd and 12, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 16. You just either got to get to the quarterback or not have breakdowns in coverage and cover guys up because you can't live like that. And they're facing a team this week that is good at sustaining drives and running the ball. This will be an intriguing matchup because Arizona State also likes to run the football. I was looking at some numbers this morning, and I'll share them with you here shortly. Overall, though, there was a lot of juice going into this football game. I don't know how much the players were concerned about or were thinking about the iron skillet and the final meeting and everything that it meant. However, I'm really happy that TCU won that game. And I think it meant more to SMU than it did to TCU. But I said this last Wednesday. I was like, man, I really hope this team takes it personally what happened to them last season in Dallas. Because that was an embarrassment. There's no way around it. They gave up 66 points. I know some of those were punt returns, pick sixes. It was a bad day at the office. And even though that was a very good SMU team that ended up going to the playoff, I don't think there's a world where there was that much of a talent separation between those two squads. You get to 3-0 in non-conference play. You get your first win on what we hope is a revenge tour this season, where TCU avenges some of those losses that really hurt them last year. And now you have to turn the page quickly. That was an emotional game, a nice win, and you play again in 6 days, and you got a road trip to Arizona in front of you. And Sonny Dykes and his coaching staff are going to have their hands full with Kenny Dillingham. Arizona State went to Waco and won a game at the buzzer against Baylor. Baylor turned the ball over 3 times, and Arizona State still had to knock down a game-winning field goal to get a 27-24 victory. They are not ranked, but looking at the schedule, I think this is one of the toughest games, if not the toughest game, left in front of them. You still have to go on the road to BYU. You get Iowa State at home. Iowa State's number 14 in the latest AP Top 25 poll. You play Baylor at home, which will be a rivalry game and a Baylor team that I think is better than their 2-2 record right now. So there's some tough ones. But for my money, going and playing the defending Big 12 champions on the road at night is right up there with some of the ones I just mentioned. And if you win this football game, I feel like SMU was a good step forward. If you beat Arizona State and you're 4-0, then we can start legitimately talking about Big 12 championship aspirations. I saw some people today throwing around every week. There's playoff projections, and I see TCU in a few of those. They're ranked now at number 24. I get it. But as Nick Saban would say, don't eat the rat poison. Like, you still haven't played a conference game. I feel like SMU is a talented team. I don't know if at the end of the year they'll be considered a good team, but that was a solid win at home. You took care of your business in your first two ball games. If you win this game on Friday, then we can start having some real discussions about what the schedule looks like moving forward. The team has to take it one week at a time. We don't. If you take down Arizona State Friday, we can start having some real discussions about what this team's goals should be, what trap games are sitting there in between them, doing something special. We can have all those discussions. But as of right now, you're a team that got through your non-conference schedule unscathed, and I still think there's a lot to prove. I feel like there's a step up you can take defensively. I still think even though they had over 500 yards of offense on Saturday and put up 35 points, I believe there's some more efficiency that can be squeezed out of that offense. I still think there were some wasted drives on Saturday afternoon that just can't happen on a week-to-week basis. All of that is going to start to come into focus as they take on Arizona State Friday and then move through the rest of the schedule. And we'll talk about that next here on the Frog Factory. Okay, so Arizona State, early matchup indications, ESPN, the line I see is Arizona State's 1.5 point favorites. I'm looking at this on Monday afternoon. Don't know exactly when or where you're watching that. Sam Levitt's one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. He's thrown for 748 yards, completed about 60% of his passes, 6 touchdowns, does have 3 interceptions. This is a team that stubbed their toe in Starkville against Mississippi State, and I wouldn't say they've fallen out of the conversation as far as playoff or championships or those kind of things, but it certainly did temper expectations a little bit. But they bounced back, and they won against Texas State at home, which, yes, that's a game where you should take care of your business, but I do feel like Texas State's a good program. They go on the road, they take down Baylor in what ended up being a pretty wild football game, 27-24 at the buzzer there, knocked down a field goal. So it's a big matchup for TCU. Even though Sam Levitt is a really good quarterback, I really think it starts and ends with the run game for Kenny Dillingham's squad. They've got 876 yards rushing on the season, and they're averaging about 5.5 yards per carry. Larique Brown is their leading rusher with 372 yards, but Levitt, 219 yards on 42 carries. They've run the ball 163 times. They've passed the ball 119 times. And I get excited when I see that because I really think this TCU run defense is becoming a force. Aside from that first drive against North Carolina, the Tar Heels could not run the ball against them. ACU obviously did not have much success running the ball. SMU, similar thing. And so the passing game, there's been some breakdowns there. And just also, there's been times where other teams have made plays. Like, we have to acknowledge that. I feel like Abilene Christian had better one-on-one receivers than I would have thought going into that ball game. Obviously, SMU has a good quarterback and receiving core led by former TCU Horned Frog Jordan Hudson, who can make plays as well. But this Arizona State team is going to run the ball straight at you. Now, in the passing game, they have one of the best wide receivers in the Big 12, Jordan Tyson, who has 31 catches for 357 yards. Listen to this. Tyson has 31 receptions. As a team, they have 72 receptions. The person who's second in receptions on the team is Mater, their tight end, with 13 catches. And then it goes down to like 8, 10, 4. Their passing offense is Jordan Tyson. And if I'm Andy Avalos, I know he doesn't like to bracket guys and double team guys a lot. And we saw a lot of different looks as far as pressure and blitz packages and trying to rattle and unsettle Kevin Jennings on Saturday. I'm rolling a safety over the top of Tyson, and I'm saying, if somebody else can beat me, go for it. Like, if you can run the ball consistently and win the game that way, give it a shot. If you think you can win the game by going to one of these other receivers or using the middle of the field with your tight ends and running backs for the most part, then go for it. But you can't let Jordan Tyson just have his way in one-on-one coverage all night long. And I think that would be my biggest concern from a matchup perspective in this ball game. Defensively, Arizona State got some guys back recently. They looked good against Baylor. Now, part of that was turnovers. Baylor had 3. Josh Cameron had 2 fumbles, which is very uncharacteristic for him. But they did a nice job against a Baylor team that has a lot of firepower at the skill positions. Now, the good thing about Saturday, through the first 2 games, it was really the Jordan Dwyer show. And we sort of wondered aloud, like, okay, when do you start to get Eric McAllister involved in the offense? I heard on the telecast, on the TV broadcast, I think it was Taylor Davis, who was a sideline reporter, said that the coaching staff told her that was a big emphasis in the meetings last week. Like, we have to find a way to get Eric McAllister more involved, to get him more touches, to make sure that he's a factor in this offense. And they did that to the tune of 254 yards. And there were some more yards left on the table because, yes, his foot was in bounds on that catch. It should have been a touchdown, and TCU should have taken a big lead and potentially run away with that game a little bit more. But his ability to catch the ball and make things happen after the catch, SMU secondary is not good. And I think that's the position group for them that's going to decide how the rest of their season goes. But it was nice to hear that they made that an emphasis and went for it. I thought Josh Hoover had an okay game on Saturday. I feel like he was inaccurate at times and ball was going high, which has been a problem for him this year. There have just been certain throws where, especially over the middle of the field, kind of quick passes to wide receivers, where he just got too much juice on the football and it's going high in the air. A few times it's been tipped and there have been chances for interceptions. You have to find a way to play a clean game. The false starts were a killer on Saturday. And I know SMU has some good pass rushers. I'm not sure if it was just guys trying to cheat a little bit and get a good start on their sets and try to get to a place where they, can set the edge and set a pocket for Josh Hoover. But going backwards, get behind the chains and turn the ball over are a fast way to disaster for this team in a game like this against a team that's really good. But I've been impressed with the mental toughness of this group. I mean, they weren't behind for long on Saturday. Like, SMU went up 24-21. It felt like all the momentum was sort of shifting their way. And it wasn't even it was a response drive, but it wasn't. But 3rd and 5 deep in your own territory. And if you don't convert there, do you go for it on 4th down? Do you have to punt it away and hope that your defense can get a stop? Your defense was just on the field for a long time. And now within 2 minutes, like, they're potentially back out there. That completion to Eric McAllister and his subsequent run to the end zone was a giant shift in that ball game. And then they were able to really dominate from there. When they went down early against North Carolina, there was no blinking. Okay, we had a bad drive defensively and offensively on our first possession. Oh, well, let's get with it. And another good start against SMU, like another week where they forced a stop. They get the ball. They go down to score. They score on the first 2 drives. It was methodical. It took some big plays. It took some plays on 3rd and long. But they got the job done. That's the type of efficiency you need to see against a good Arizona State squad when they match up with them on Friday night. Looking ahead a little bit to the next week, October 4th. Game times announced today. TCU will have a night game against Colorado, 6:30 Central Time kick. It'll be on Fox National. Colorado has not performed to expectations yet, but I guess, potentially Deion Sanders against a ranked team, that was enough for Fox to go ahead and make the call and say, hey, we want this as our night game. So if you're one of those people that is like, there's TCU never gets a night game and I want more time to tailgate and I want more time to go to my kid's soccer game, and then that's all understandable. It's there for you on October 4th, 6:30 kick against Colorado. I'll be back on Wednesday. Thank you for tuning in the show. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Best way to support me right now. It's Frog Factor Podcast. Talk to you soon.